All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today to kick off our regional conversation on solar development in Dane County. I am Caitlin Shanahan. I'm a community planner with the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission, CARPC. And I'm joined today by Kathy Kuntz, the director of the Dane County Office of Energy and Climate Change. We're excited to have some special guests with us today as well. We've got Deb Perry with the International City County Management Association, or ICMA. She'll be talking to us about the SolSmart program today. And we've also got Phil Grupe, who's the City of Fitchburg Sustainability Specialist. As you may know, Fitchburg achieved a bronze level SolSmart designation in 2019. So Phil will be able to share a little bit about their experience with that. So I do have just a few kind of basic housekeeping things to go through before we get started. We are using Zoom's meeting format today instead of the webinar module like we usually do. But we did that so that everyone can have the option to freely participate in the discussion. For now, we'll ask that everyone stays muted during the presentations, and then at the end, we'll open everything up. People are welcome to turn cameras on, turn mics on if you would like to, and be part of the conversation that way. As I mentioned, the session is being recorded, and we will email everyone a link to the recording afterward. We'll also put it on our website, our Facebook and LinkedIn pages, and our YouTube channel. And we'll share the slides as well, and any links that we reference during the presentations. If you have questions as we go, you can feel free to put those in the chat. And we'll try to answer quick ones during the presentations if we can. Otherwise, the rest of them we'll use as a starting point for our discussion at the end. So, CARPC and the Dane County Office of Energy and Climate Change are each pursuing SolSmart designations this year. CARPC is aiming for a regional designation, and OECC is going for county level. And so our goals for today are first to share information on the SolSmart program. We also want to get a conversation started about solar in Dane County in general. And we want to give any communities who might be thinking about going for their own designation kind of a jumping off point to get started. So we'll begin with an overview of the SolSmart program provided by Deb. She'll talk about how it benefits participating communities and also some current trends in solar energy development. And then Kathy and I will talk about our county and regional designation processes and how they can potentially support local designations. And then Phil will share Fitchburg's experience achieving their local designation and how it has benefited their community. And as I mentioned, we also want to hear from you during this. We recognize that any discussion of solar needs to be a nuanced conversation. We need to take into account different variables, perspectives, trade-offs. And as we move through our designation processes, we want to know what are the local priorities, what are questions, concerns that communities have, so that we can ultimately make balanced and informed decisions. And if you are interested in pursuing your own designation, we definitely want to know how we can make it easier for you to do that. So let's start first with the basics. Why are we doing this, Kathy? Why does it matter?
Yeah, thanks, Caitlin. I really, so first, thanks to everybody for being here. Apologies, I don't know, my camera just broke. But we really appreciate CARPC's partnership on this. And you know, we have a countywide climate action plan. We have some ambitious goals, including 1,200 megawatts of solar serving Dane County by 2030. Now that's utility scale solar, but it's also solar on rooftops. You know, we need it all to happen. And as we talk with a lot of our local government allies about making that happen, there's been this discussion about, well, sometimes we need help figuring out the best way to align all of the pieces. And that's why we really thought, hey, if we pursue SolSmart in a regional way, we can make it easier for folks to figure out those zoning issues. We can make sure that we're all leaning into these opportunities appropriately and you know, get further faster kind of thing. So that's sort of my orientation, is that by us doing this regionally, we can make it easier for everyone to make this happen, and it's aligned with a lot of our goals. So there you have it, Caitlin.
Fabulous. All right. So from there, I will pass it over to Deb. Deb Perry is a senior program manager at the International City County Management Association. She is joining us today to talk about SolSmart, which is a program that ICMA helps to lead for the U.S. Department of Energy. Deb is an AICP certified planner with more than 18 years of experience, and she specializes in renewable energy, climate resilience, and strategic planning. All right, with that, the floor is yours, Deb.
Thank you, Caitlin. If you want to go to the next slide, I'll start with the real boring stuff, which is my disclaimer. So as Caitlin mentioned, the work that I'm going to talk about today on SolSmart is funded by the U.S. Department of Energy. And I have to say that anything I say today, I am not working or expressing the views of the Department of Energy, and any opinions that I express are my own. So now we'll get into the good stuff. So about SolSmart. So I know some of you know all of this already, and some of you are even kind of engaged in the process, but just to make sure everybody kind of has a level playing field here. So SolSmart is a national program. It is a designation and technical assistance program. We've been in existence more than 6 years and have helped more than 500 local governments around the country to make it faster, easier, and more affordable to go solar. So I'll get into some of the details of how that works and what the process is. SolSmart communities are recognized for implementing national best practices to encourage solar at the local level. The picture here is of our program guide, and our program guide really lays out what are those best practices. We have an advisory group that reviews those practices and helps us to identify what are those high impact actions that local governments can take. Again, distilling those into this program guide. And then in here we have guidance and templates and examples and resources to help actually put those actions into practice. And again, the program comes with the technical assistance to help local governments get through that process and put those practices into place. If you go to the next slide, again, the program's been around for a while, so we've actually evolved into 3 different program guides and 3 different what we call pathways. So we started off really focused on local governments and quickly realized that that counties and regional organizations also have a really important role to play. And so we've again created the 3 different resource types, 3 different pathways, if you will. So all of these organizations can seek designation, and essentially that is what's happening in your place, where a local government can seek designation, as well as a county, which we call our modified pathway, and then regional organizations. Each one of those guides really reflects the unique jurisdiction or appropriate actions for those different levels. Recognizing, for example, regional organizations can be really important conveners. They can offer a lot of training and capacity support, but they can't mostly or usually implement zoning. So again, you'll see in each of those pathways kind of the appropriate actions for the appropriate level of government. If you go to the next slide, the designation structure. So SolSmart recognizes different levels as you implement more practices locally. And so moving from bronze, that's our basic level. Really a bronze designation signifies you've done a lot of work to create transparency. You've looked at your permitting process. You've made that, again, transparent, put out resources for the community, maybe improved your zoning, but what we would call a kind of a foundational set of actions. As you do more, you can move up to silver, gold, and our newest level is platinum. We just released that about 2 months ago. We don't have any platinum designees yet, but there's a bit of a race going on right now to see who's going to get there first. So again, the guidebook lays out what you need to do to attain each of those levels and that recognition. The basic structure is that there are prerequisite actions for each of those levels, so things you must do to kind of get to that level, and then you have to earn a set of or a certain number of points. Those points are for the different actions. So obviously harder actions, you get more points, some easier actions, you earn points, but fewer. And those are in these categories that, again, our technical team has helped identify as really important areas to work. So permitting and inspection, planning and zoning, government operations, community engagement, and market development. So again, there's a fundamental set of prerequisites that we require you take to achieve each level, and then a menu, if you will, of different things that you can take depending on what's appropriate, what's timely for your community, what maybe issues you're facing. So for example, there are actions you can take for solarized campaigns, if that's something your community is excited about, or for community solar or large scale solar. So really every community that gets through their SolSmart designation may take a slightly different path and do a slightly different set of actions that really reflects what matters to them and to their residents and stakeholders. If you go to the next slide, I'm going to back up a little bit. Why solar? Why participate? What are the benefits of solar? I do assume that if you came to this call, you probably have some sense of the benefits and some interest in those benefits. So I'll stay high level here. Happy to answer any questions though. So, in general, solar is a really important way and valuable way for communities to meet things like their climate and sustainability goals. And Kathy referred to that. If you've set a goal for yourself, SolSmart can really help identify the actions to reaching that goal. Solar is a way to generate local, clean, and reliable power. Many communities come to solar thinking about issues like resilience and energy reliability. It's a way to create local jobs and economic development and really keep energy local. And solar has proven to be a valuable way to reduce utility bills and price stability, which I would say in the past couple of years has really become an important benefit of solar, is the stability that people are able to get in energy pricing. So again, I'm going to stay high level there. Happy to dig in if folks have specific questions, but also, a sense of the trends. So the cost of solar has declined dramatically over the past decade or two. It has plateaued a bit in recent years, in part supply chain issues and labor issues, but the trend, again, for the past couple decades has been really significant declines in pricing and in cost. And then if we look at the growth of solar and how much deployment we've had and are projected to have, it's pretty remarkable. So between now and 2030, likely to be something like 3 to 4 times as much solar capacity installed. So really dramatic growth. And I think many communities come to SolSmart anticipating that growth and think about, are you ready? Are you ready to be issuing that many more permits, seeing that many more projects? Are your regulations kind of ready for things like energy storage and electric vehicles and those kind of tangential issues that we see as we see the solar growth? So, the anticipated trend is different in different parts of the country, but in general, we really can project to see, something like 3 times as much solar by 2030. Local government action is important. This is really the underlying principle of the SolSmart program. So the cost trend that I talked about and the dramatic savings that we've seen in solar really has been in the hardware side of things. So the panels themselves, the inverters, the hardware costs have really been most of that decline that we've seen. There's another aspect, which we call the soft costs. And now that comprises about 65% of the cost of a system. So it's not related to the hardware. It's things like the permitting costs, the marketing costs, the other costs that are not the hardware to get the system installed and operating, interconnected to the utility and all of that. So that soft cost has been much stickier, much harder to get down than the hardware has. And I think local governments have a really, in many ways, can start to work at and chip away at those soft costs. And again, that's really the underlying concept here with SolSmart. So by streamlining permitting and inspection, by supporting consumer education and getting kind of consumers ready for solar, answering some of their basic questions so that when they engage with a solar developer, they already know a lot and are well-informed consumers, leading by example, having projects that folks can look at and come see and experience, Local governments can facilitate things like group purchasing, which can drive down costs and the costs of financing, for example, filling gaps in financing. So recognizing if your local market has financing gaps, are there parts of your community that can't get financing for one reason or another? And we see local government stepping in and helping to fill those gaps and create some really innovative ways to help get people connected with solar and with solar financing. So again, I think local government has a really important role to play. Through SolSmart, you can get help on all of these processes. So we help to review and improve those local processes. We do take a close look at things like your permitting and inspection processes and work with you to think about opportunities to streamline those and improve those processes. We offer training for staff, so training for folks who work in building permitting and inspection to make sure that they're aware of best practices and get their questions answered. Establish clear processes for things like energy storage, EVs, large-scale solar. So again, these are technologies that many communities are just starting to see, but really will likely have some pretty explosive growth. So making sure that your processes are in place and that those, that there's a clear process for a developer to get through. I think most developers would tell you the most important thing they want is clarity of the process, whatever the process is. If they can anticipate it and plan for it, if they know what they need to submit, the clarity of that process is really important. And then innovative practices like instant permitting. There's a piece of software called Solar App Plus, developed by the National Renewable Energy Lab. And that has become a really important concept for communities with higher volumes of applications. So again, SolSmart provides free technical assistance to really help look at those processes and make those improvements. SolSmart is also part of the federal Justice 40 initiative. So this is the Biden administration's commitment to making sure that the benefits of these programs are equitably shared by all, particularly those who are in communities that have been underrepresented or underserved in the past. And so our criteria reflects really the importance of making all of our programs inclusive, of serving underserved communities, and again, things like helping connect with financing and technical assistance and support, engaging a broad and diverse group in the community, and tracking metrics to ensure that we're really sharing those benefits broadly. I've mentioned the technical assistance program several times, but just to maybe further clarify, if you engage in the SolSmart program, a technical assistance provider is with you every step of the way, helping to recognize or help identify what actions are appropriate for your community, helping connect you with resources, best practices, again, if there are trainings that are needed, things like that. All of that is part of our technical assistance package. It is as customized as the pathway, as I mentioned earlier. So depending on what the community identifies, the technical assistance provider will kind of match those needs. I say there's free technical assistance, but I think it is always important to say what the expectation is of the community. So pursuing designation does take staff time, and there basically needs to be a person within the community that is working to put these actions into place, provide that documentation back to the SolSmart program. Often that's coordinating with others within the community, whether that's the inspection department or building inspection, whether that's doing the community outreach piece. So there certainly is a commitment of staff time. And communities are expected to have a clear demonstration of their commitment. And I'll talk a little more about that in a minute. So the designation process, this diagram just kind of details how you go from, check us out on the web, read our program guide, familiarize yourself with the kinds of practices that are required for SolSmart designation. We can have a consultation call where we hear, what is most of interest to you and can explain anything about the program, answer any questions. And then that written commitment. So there is a letter of commitment that has to come from the community, and that's kind of what officially starts that process. That really, again, just expresses an official commitment to engage. It doesn't mean that you have to get all the way through it. we know things come up, but it at least gets the process started. And at that point, we'll get the technical assistance provider assigned to you and get working on the process. The application, so, this is a Department of Energy funded program. It is very important that we uphold strong accountability. So there is documentation of the actions that you take. So whether that's, sending us a press release or documentation of a solar project, or a documentation that, you did a training for your staff. It is a collection of documentation so that when you get your designation, it really has meaning behind it. And again, those 500 communities we've worked with can really say that they've put these practices into place. And at the end of the day, you get a plaque, I should say that, and usually a press release. And we include you in a lot of different like press materials and things with the Department of Energy as well. So some resources, and I think Caitlin will be emailing these out after the fact, but we have a whole resource page and library, a link to the program guide, which again really lays out the kinds of actions in the point system and how that works. And then some FAQs that questions we frequently hear from communities. Just want to recognize that SolSmart is run by a big team that has a lot of different expertise across all of these organizations. So yeah, our technical assistance team and our team that sets the criteria is a big team, a big collaborative effort.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Deb.
Yeah.
Really helpful. So now that we've gotten an overview of the program itself, Kathy and I are going to talk a little bit about what CARPC and OECC are doing to pursue our respective designations. And we'll also talk about how our efforts have the potential to benefit Dane County communities. So for CARPC's part, we decided to get involved with SolSmart basically as another channel for implementing our 2050 regional development framework, which we adopted last year. Is it 2 years ago? No, it was last year. We are doing a lot right now with the regional tree canopy. We've got green infrastructure initiatives where we're really trying to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and foster climate resilience by convening interagency collaborations. And so participating in SolSmart and working more with solar and other renewable energy is kind of the next piece of that puzzle for us. So through the designation process, we're really going to be leaning into our role as a convening organization. We're going to be focusing on the designation activities that are in that community engagement category. During this process, we really want to work with communities to identify regional priorities. We want to know what our preferences, what are best practices that make the most sense for our area in terms of solar development. And as Deb mentioned, with a special focus on equitable access to solar energy and its benefits. So some of the activities that we're going to be undertaking or that we've already started as part of the designation process are compiling solar development resources for local governments. So that is going to take the form of a page on our website. It is now live in draft form. We'll include a link to that in our follow-up email. Right now it has our solar goals as a region. We've got a selection of toolkits and some videos on there, other resources as well. And we'll be adding to that as we go. Eventually we'll have some more specific things like inspection checklists, zoning ordinance information that communities can use as they become developed. We will also be conducting a zoning code assessment. And that is going to be part of a larger project. We're looking at all of the zoning codes in the region for a bunch of different things. But part of it is that as it relates to the SolSmart process, we're going to be trying to identify any barriers that might exist to PV installation in local zoning codes. And, if we find them, we will offer some suggestions for possibly revising those codes. SolSmart, as Deb mentioned, also reviews zoning codes as part of the local designation process. So we're going to be working with them to kind of collaborate, look for any advantages there might be for batching the code review in this way. We'll work together on best practices, recommendations, coordinating any staff trainings that might be helpful. We will also be hosting a zoning and permitting webinar that's a little bit more detailed later this year, again, in partnership with Kathy and OECC. And lastly, we will be supporting communities who want to pursue their own local designation, whether that's through providing data, connecting with resources, if there's a way to kind of piggyback on certain activities that we could do together instead of, each entity doing it on their own, we'll be looking for those opportunities as well.
Yeah, and then at the county side, since
We'll turn it over to Kathy to talk about the county designation.
Thanks, Caitlin. Yeah, at the county level, so since we issued our 2020 climate action plan, we've been doing a lot of things to encourage solar installations at all scales. And so really the SolSmart designation is very consistent with that. We're pretty comfortable right now that we can achieve gold and that this is consistent with the climate action plan and our bigger goals. For us, when we think about our SolSmart activities, there's kind of two big priorities for me. One is that we bring more communities along. So we want more local governments to get SolSmart designations. And I'm happy to share that Mount Horeb has already submitted a letter of commitment to SolSmart to pursue designation. So I'm hopeful that we're going to see at least a couple more of the communities that are participating today take that on. The other priority for us is really around the equity piece of this. I think we have a unique opportunity here to work with CARPC to really think about, are there things we can do to ensure that everyone in our community has access to the benefits of solar power? Because right now that's not completely equitable, and we want to really think about that. In terms of what we need to do to get our designation, a lot of it is documentation. Deb talked about how part of the process is, sharing the proof that you did something with DOE. And so our team has really got to do that documentation, and we're putting together a new kind of point of entry solar web page where there'll be more easy to find references on some of those things. The other activities are things that Caitlin talked about. So these trainings for local government staff, for us to get gold, we need to cover planning, zoning, permitting, and inspections. And so thinking about how all of those trainings happen for local government staff on a countywide basis, sort of more to follow on how we'll do that. And then again, yeah, just supporting those local government designations in this process. And the other point I want to make about this is that, so what you see there on the screen is a Yale climate opinion map. Yale University tracks public opinion on climate action across the United States. And they've been doing this so long and at such a level that they can now tell us at a county by county level what people think about climate action. And the thing for you to take away from this is whatever question about climate Yale asks, folks in Dane County are more leaning toward action and that climate change is serious and we need to do more sooner. This particular question is about should people do more to address it, and 7 in 10 folks in Dane County say yes, people should do more. So my point here is we have communities where we have a strong majority of the population that wants to see us take action. And so as local governments, if we can make it easier for people to achieve solar on their rooftops, that's a clear benefit. That's a clear thing that our communities are going to support. So just to kind of give you that context that this is very much leaning into what our communities care about. And then the last thing I want to say is, I think for both Caitlin and other staff at CARPC and our team at OECC, this is really about how we make it easy for our local governments to achieve these changes locally too. And so, you know, we've been both saying, you know, there's support here, but I want to make that really tangible, that there are things that like CARPC will be doing in terms of the zoning assessment that will help local communities figure out their zoning questions as part of a SolSmart application. There are things our office has done, like our work around HOA covenants, that local governments can take advantage of. Caitlin, if you go to the next slide, maybe the best example of this is the Madison program. So the city of Madison has for 6 or 7 years now had a solar group buy program called Madison. For the last several years, our office has sponsored that program so that it's available to residents across Dane County. So at no cost to your local government, I'm making sure that your residents can take advantage of that group buy program. Under the SolSmart program, there is a market development category where you can get 20 points, which is a third of the points you need to be bronze, for supporting a community-wide group purchase program. Well, so your local community has a group buy program available to it. And, you know, before the pandemic, we had a couple of communities doing really innovative things in conjunction with Madison. They were holding events or inviting the Madison people to forums in the community, something that sort of leveraged that. And so doing something in that space is for example, a way for you to get 20 SolSmart points. So that's just my best tangible example today of how we can work together. And I'm sure as this moves forward, my friends in municipalities are going to come up with 2 or 3 more ways that they're going to go, hey, Kathy, if you did X and Y, it would help us achieve this. And you need to know that we're just here to do that. You know, my quest is that we have a dozen SolSmart designated communities in Dane County, because that's who we are. So that's my pitch there.
Excellent. Thank you, Kathy. So building off of that conversation about how our designation efforts could make it easier to achieve a local designation, you might be wondering, what would that actually look like? So we've got Phil Grupe here. He's the sustainability specialist with the city of Fitchburg. That is a role that he's held for about 4 years. Among his areas of focus are municipal energy and renewable portfolio development. He also works with bike network improvements, sustainability policy updates, and community outreach and engagement. Phil's training and career have covered biology, environmental education, sustainability engagement, and energy efficiency programming. So I'm really happy to have you here today, Phil. I will give the floor to you.
Great, thanks, Caitlin. Putting some of the pieces together that have been mentioned, a couple of points here. So I've been with Fitchburg for about 4 years. Our SolSmart designation was early in 2019. So I actually arrived on the scene after we went through that process. I will speak to it as best I can, but I can definitely talk about Fitchburg's experience with energy and promoting solar in general, and what we've seen since we achieved that SolSmart designation. So we go to the next slide. So just in general, Fitchburg has, I think a lot of communities in Dane County can boast this, that we've had a pretty strong energy focus for the past decade plus, going back to Governor Doyle's Energy Independent Communities Pledge. Joining Green Tier Legacy Communities, we have solar energy projects dating back to 2009, when we did a couple of partner installations with Madison Gas and Electric, our primary electric and gas utility, as well as putting solar hot water on our city hall back then. We've had a couple more major rooftop projects in the meantime. So we've got about 450 kilowatts of solar rooftop capacity in Fitchburg. We've got all of our latest buildings have been solar ready. We've installed geothermal ground source heat pumps. We passed a clean energy resolution a few years ago, and so a number of different things going on here that Fitchburg has really tried to push renewable energy, decrease in emissions, and so kind of driving the point home here that the city is trying to lead by example. This is something that there has been dedication to from a municipal standpoint before we even get into what comes next, which is the residential and commercial community in Fitchburg are, I think last time I looked, it was 80 times the total energy output of the municipality. So getting renewable energy in government is great. That's fantastic. If we could get all of Fitchburg's municipal energy to renewable, to carbon zero, that would be a fantastic goal. But there's a much bigger prize out there, which is working with the community to really transform the entire city and not just municipal energy profile. Oh yeah, just a little bit more detail on. So we do have the municipal rooftops. The 3 buildings at the right, on the right side, are at the top right is the library. Just below that is our latest fire station that was installed on South Cyene Road just a couple of years ago. And then City Hall, you can see there with the solar panels on the front of the roof, as well as the solar hot water panels sticking up above. So we have 5 different locations shown with the yellow stars in the left map that are municipal buildings with rooftop solar. In the map on the lower right, this is just taken from Dane County's clean energy map, and it's showing the commercial projects around the city. And I think this is even missing a couple more that I need to look into submitting to the county map. But commercial locations around Fitchburg that also have pursued solar. So it's definitely something that is established and still growing. That other blue star in the map on the left, in the next slide, you can see that we have in Fitchburg, the latest major solar project was the O'Brien Solar Farm. So the O'Brien family leasing 160 acres to Madison Gas and Electric, who worked with EDF Renewables to install a 20 megawatt solar array. That's being the electricity from that being sold to 7 different customers, one of which is the city of Fitchburg, and that's powering a significant portion of our energy as well. But then moving on from there to, because I was kind of going back and talking about a couple of things I already had covered with the municipal solar effort. What comes next is the SolSmart, and how do we go from municipal to community-wide action? Certainly there's a lot of outreach, there's a lot of engagement. We want to make the process easier and make information available to our residents and our community, our business as well. And SolSmart's a fantastic way to help us do that, identifying places where we may have gaps, places where the process may be overly burdensome, or where we could do a better job of reaching out and engaging the community. So the process, I couldn't speak exactly to what it was like 4 to 5 years ago when we were going through it. I've worked with a technical advisor to look at the process for us moving up from bronze to a higher tier. So I've at least spoken with a technical advisor and gotten a little bit of a sense of what that will be like if we keep pushing forward. And it really is, they try to make the process as easy as possible. I know a lot of this has already been covered, but they really help us to examine what our current landscape looks like, identify a combination of what's the low-hanging fruit, what are the things that would be really easy to improve on, but also where the areas of greatest impact. Do you have fees that are keeping people from submitting permits for solar? Do you have do you need to make it clear in zoning? Certainly Wisconsin statewide explicitly allows solar in a residential context, but you still have some neighborhood associations or other potential local hurdles that can give interested residents the impression that maybe solar wouldn't be acceptable on their home. And so trying to find a way to break through that and get people the information they need to figure out whether solar is something they can pursue. It does require coordination with city staff. So when we're looking at the permitting process, we're working with the building inspection team. If we're going through zoning, I'm in the planning and zoning department in Fitchburg, and so I'm working with my colleagues there when we're looking at updating zoning codes and things like that. So Fitchburg created through, thanks to the SolSmart process a couple of years ago, Fitchburg now has a solar resources page with a number of links with helpful information for residents. We've got very clear fees on our website. We just went through an overhaul. This is post SolSmart. I haven't actually looked to see if this would get us additional points for upping our designation. But we just went through our whole permitting structure and made the whole thing available online. So we're working through OpenGov now, so that all permits and licensing can be done online. Solar is no different there. So solar permitting has become even easier to pursue. In the 4 years since we've gotten SolSmart designation, we've had almost 300 solar permits approved. So it's a pretty significant chunk, looking at what our total number of households is in Fitchburg and the number of those that are owner occupied, which is right around the 50% mark. That 287 residential solar permits is over 4% of our owner occupied homes just in the last 4 years. I believe the national average is estimated at about 6% of residences have solar on the roofs. I would imagine Fitchburg is well above that if we got 4% just in the last 4 years. I would like to think everyone that's installing solar is submitting for permits. Probably not the case. So if we add in people that installed solar prior to 2019, as well as those that maybe are installing without applying for permits, I would guess that we are doing quite well compared to the 6% estimated national average. And then one thing that I think I remember if it was Deb or Caitlin pointed out that those soft costs with solar, where they pointed out that permitting, licensing can get up to 8% of project costs. The average over the last 4 years, we've brought in over 50,000 permitting fees, which really covers our costs of reviewing processes, going out to site visits, things like that. But it totals less than 1% of the total project costs. We did increase fees last year just because we realized that we weren't actually recouping the costs that we were putting in from a staff perspective. And still last year it was 1.5, just under 1.5% of the average project cost was the permitting fee. So that this really is making sure that we're keeping those soft costs from the city's end as low as we possibly can to keep that from being a burden for residents. So we got SolSmart Bronze in 2019 because we got over, 60% of the points available in the inspection category, got a special excellence designation there. So that's up on the screen. And then the question is, what's next for us? We're certainly looking to improve from bronze. We actually have enough points right now that we could be gold. It's just getting a few of the prerequisite specific categories. So explicitly allowing solar in our zoning. It is allowed at the state level, but we have not done so in our ordinances and our zoning code. So that's a step we'd have to take, as well as I think there's a little bit of we have to promise on our website a 3-day turnaround for permitting. I'm pretty sure we're meeting that. So it's just updating our website to make it clear that can be expected. But we're, I think, pretty close to goal already, and looking forward to working with the county and other neighbors to pursue some of those opportunities and kind of share resources back and forth. We're looking at the Solar App Plus, the Solar App resource, which is an automated permitting platform online. There was an opportunity last year to get, I believe it's a free, Solar App is free to cities, but the technical assistance, the cost essentially of integrating that into the system was also, there was a grant opportunity last year to get that reimbursed. We didn't do that, but I'm still interested in looking at Solar App to see if we can automate that process and turn these around even faster. And keep putting solar on our rooftops and working with, MG&E does a shared solar community solar program and or a solar purchasing program, and Madison is an opportunity that we've partnered with and promoted, and we'll continue doing that.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Phil. Off the top of your head, do you know what the permitting fee is for rooftop solar?
The permitting fee is, I believe, $350 right now, and that includes everything: the inspection, the site visit, the permit application submission fee.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So if any of this discussion so far has piqued anyone's interest in starting your own local designation process, there are a couple fairly easy things that you can do to get started. The first would be to review the program guide. We'll send a link to that in our follow-up email. But you can go through the list of criteria and see, what actions appeal to you, or might be things that you're already doing or that you plan to do or that align with other initiatives in your community. Another would be to draft that letter of commitment or the solar statement that Deb mentioned. Then you'd have your first prerequisite done. It's super easy. There's a template on the SolSmart website. Again, we'll share a link to that. And you just need to customize it for your community. We'd also be happy to schedule an introductory call. You could talk with someone at SolSmart, a technical assistance provider that could kind of get you started on the path that way. Myself or Kathy would be happy to talk more about our regional cohort approach, maybe to coordinate some of our designation activities. Again, if we could all do them individually, or we could kind of stack our efforts and do them together, and then it just makes it a little bit easier for everyone. We will also share information in our follow-up email on a webinar that's coming up on Wednesday, the 28th in the afternoon. The title of that is How the Grid, Regulators, and Wholesale Markets Affect Local Solar Goals. Participating in that webinar can get you a quick 10 points. So it could be your first 10 points toward a local designation. Kathy, was there anything that you wanted to add on that?
No, I think that was terrific, Caitlin.
Great. All right. So now I think we'll open it up for discussion. So again, feel free to unmute yourselves if you want to speak. You can turn your cameras on if you would like to. You also don't have to if you don't want to. I totally get it. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat at this time, but I think a good place to start would be if you have any questions for anyone that's presented on anything that we've talked about so far. Go ahead and ask them. You can raise your hand if you want, or I think if we just go ahead and talk, that'll work. Otherwise, I do have a list of questions that we can ask you, but if you don't want to be called on, it may be better to volunteer.
So this is Tim White.
Well, maybe I would pose the question to our participants. Is there anything that you want to know more about as far as zoning or permitting or any of those kind of technical implementation aspects? And you can feel free to type this in the chat or just say it out loud, but that will help us start to put together our training that we're planning for later this year, so we can make sure that we're addressing things that people are actually interested in.
I'm not sure they can hear us, but
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh yeah, Tim, I don't know if you were started going. I can go after Tim.
Okay. Yeah, Tim White from Mount Horeb. And I think the real appeal to this coordinated effort is to reduce our staff time in what we're doing. So I think it's really a great thing that we're doing this kind of as a larger group. So I'll be very interested to see how that plays out.
Excellent. Thank you, Tim. Yeah, we're excited to work with you all as well.
Yeah, this is Greg May. I'm the sustainability program coordinator at the City of Madison, and just happy to stay involved and coordinate. I know, I believe the city's at a gold level, but I mean, getting to platinum is always good. I think there's a lot of, I've been told, at least anecdotally, that there are some Madison ordinances and permitting processes that could be streamlined, that they're a little bit onerous. So happy to kind of look at some of the back end logistics that might be slowing down some permitting. I think that would be a really great project for me as I kind of get up to speed here. That, and I'm also, as an individual, working on getting some solar panels built in the condo building I'm at. So we're kind of working through that process on the other end of it as well. So experiencing that, having some of the people are coming in for a final inspection tomorrow. So I'm sure I'll have lots to share about our permitting process as I move through it personally. Anyway, as this moves forward, I'm really happy to stay involved and to help coordinate. So I think it's a really exciting initiative. So keep us in the loop.
Thanks, Greg. How long have you been with the city?
I started just after Memorial Day. So this is
Okay, so brand new. Okay, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Caitlin, I might offer something. One of the reasons that SolSmart evolved to have the regional pathway is solar markets really are regional. Like the jobs benefits and the economic development benefits really are more than just, what one local government can do to move and create a really vibrant solar market. So as you think about what might be some of the more meaningful actions, I think you could also at a regional scale engage with the solar developers to hear their perspective, those that operate throughout the region. Are there things that are not even, are there places that are easier, places that are harder, places that, I think they could maybe give you some ideas of things that could be improved to make that regional market thrive.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a really good point. I know when we were kind of gearing up to start our designation process, I was looking through some of the other webinars and different trainings and materials that other regions across the country had put out to get their designations. And one of the ones that I found really interesting and helpful, I'm going to totally forget what part of the country it was, but they had a solar developer present as part of it. And he really clearly laid out, this is what we're looking for site selection. This is what makes it easier. This is what makes it harder. And so I thought that was a really helpful perspective so that, there's not really a question, we can work together and decide these things and be really transparent on both sides. And we have started talking, we had a kind of a preliminary meeting with One Energy Renewables, who's done a few projects in our area so far. And they work with MG&E. That's one of our big utility providers in this area. And I was really impressed. They have a really proactive approach, and they focus a lot on providing additional environmental benefits. So, not just like we install the panels and leave, but they're looking for, we're doing native plantings, and can we do fencing that allows wildlife to travel through, and doing some kind of innovative things in that space. And so we are interested in keeping that conversation going with them, and also having them either participate or kind of inform some of our future trainings and webinars as we're communicating with communities. So yeah, I think that's a really good point and an important perspective.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, this is Maureen Crombie with the City of Sun Prairie. I'm an alder, and I'm really interested. Phil, you had talked about the public buildings that you have solar on, and how you're transforming the entire city, but you didn't really talk about, I know this is a short period of time, but how you're transforming, what are the numbers in your, I think you might have briefly mentioned it, but in the residential areas of your city?
So I'm not positive on the residential numbers. We didn't we didn't specifically track solar permitting before achieving SolSmart. So I know that we have that roughly 4.5% of our owner-occupied homes since 2019 have filed permits, have had permits approved. I'm not sure what the total residential number is.
Okay, because I know that my constituents, we have a lot of people that go door to door and try to sell all these solar companies, and they don't know if these are scams or what they should do. I mean, a lot of it to me is education, of course. I don't know if, I'm just interested to see how you would promote this to the city of Fitchburg.
Yeah, well, and that's where, so we do have the solar resources link webpage on our city site. I put out every couple months a green e-newsletter to a list of subscribers, got 300 or 400 subscribers on there, and will promote things like Madison and other shared solar opportunities or purchasing opportunities like that. With Fitchburg, we have a nonprofit Legacy Solar Cooperative. They work throughout the region, but they've got several of their staff live in Fitchburg, and so they really do target Fitchburg a lot with their outreach and education. So that's helpful, as well as having a nonprofit that's really dedicated to promoting residential solar, working alongside us. We have our Resource Conservation Commission is really active. They tend to do educational events. Some of those have been solar, but I think it's been a little bit. But those kinds of, just using those channels of existing networks just to promote whatever opportunities are out there, or right now the extension on solar tax credits from the IRA.
Okay. Is that nonprofit just for the city of Fitchburg?
I know Legacy does a lot of work in Fitchburg. I think they partner with, I think they work throughout the county.
Okay.
Yes, they do. Yeah, just to jump in there, Maureen, with a little bit more. I know MG&E just did a couple of things. They were on a webinar and they did maybe an email posting about kind of concerns about solar scams, and the Department of Energy has some new nice pieces. There are apparently folks in our region who are telling people that they're entitled to free solar, and that's like a little bit of a weird frame there. So yeah, definitely, I think there, and part of, I think, what we can do through all of this is we can develop more resources about that then, like, elected officials like you can share out in your newsletters too. You know, we need to sort of figure out how we get the things from the network of people who our office talks to regularly to all of your networks too, kind of thing. So yeah, I think there's good opportunity there forward. And this collaborative process, from my perspective, is a chance to figure out what those needs are and how to meet them together versus everybody trying to figure it out on their own.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So we are at just 1 minute past 1 o'clock. So I don't want to hold people if you've got other things to go to, but if you do have any more questions, we're happy to talk anytime, phone, email. If there's anything you want to know more about, if you have certain priorities or concerns in your community, if you want to share your experience or trends that you're noticing locally, all of that would be of interest to us. We'd be more than happy to help with any questions on the designation process as well. So I think if no one else has any immediate questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up the webinar. Again, I really appreciate everyone taking the time to join us today. I hope that our discussion has been informative. I hope that, you know, we've either inspired or reaffirmed a desire to take a proactive approach to solar development. As Deb said, you know, the trend is moving in that direction, and so we want to be ready for it, and we want to make sure that we are in a position to take advantage of all the benefits that come with it. As I mentioned earlier, several times, we'll be sending out a follow-up email in the next couple of days here with, you know, tons of links. We'll have the recording, other materials. But again, in the meantime, please feel free to reach out with any questions, or if you want more info on anything. And as I said, later this year, we'll be hosting another training on zoning and permitting. So keep an eye out for details on that. And with that, have a great day. Thank you very much, everyone.